What?
Here's Brunette. Brunette's in. Andrew Brunette shot score. Andrew Brunette in sudden death overtime, and Minnesota is moving on.
I won't need my high school diploma anymore. I am smart. I am smart. I am smart. I am smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Played here by Danny Heatley, and out they come 2-on-1. This is Niederreiter holding on to it, and he scores! Nino Niederreiter wins the series for the Minnesota Wild.
Welcome to Giles and the Goalie podcast. After a brief staring contest where we tried to figure out who was going to host the show. We're here live at Grumpy's, where we always are, but following a game for once. Following a game and a couple of cold beverages and some observations. Loss of the Ducks, all in all, a 1-1-1 West Coast road trip. How you feeling tonight, Giles?
Not good. I guess, I don't know, it's weird recording right after a game because your feelings are so fresh. But, I don't know, losing 2 out of 3 on a winnable 3-game road trip is, I don't know, not acceptable.
It's kind of like calling her right for a breakup, isn't it? I mean, really? It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know? Our listeners probably expect more than us being all emotional and slightly buzzed. And
well, I don't know what that goblet's doing to you. But
I have a goblet
fine.
of some kind of fancy pumpkin beer.
Yeah, we've just been drinking Oktoberfest beer all night. So
nothing wrong with that.
Just maybe that's why we lost. I don't know.
That might have something to do with it.
I'm superstitious. The Wild were in all 3 games. All were winnable, even though LA was not an overly great effort by the team, but it was still a winnable game because LA was not playing great.
Yeah.
But, you know, as we see, the Central Division's just a competitive cluster, and giving away points is not good.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit less giving away points to the Pacific Division, but I mean, at the same time, there's that's still playoff spots on the line there, which you hate to think about in the first week of the season. But Russo's article today, which mentioned the now famous Jared Mason, it was a good poignant snapshot of the Central is tough, and every single night you go out there, I mean, the Central's playing. If all the teams are playing, you're looking at a good 3 to 4 wins a night. I mean, depending on what teams you've got, and it's never too early to start scoreboard watching in the Central, and that was kind of the point of Russo's article, and I think it was pretty spot on. I mean, it's unfortunate that the Wild are lumped into such a competitive division, but I mean, it kind of is what it is at this point, and I mean, that's just the harsh reality of it.
And eventually, everybody's going to play each other and beat the crap out of each other, and you'll kind of see some separation. But you got to win. You got to win the other ones, not just your in division games. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think, the really tough part about tonight is that they actually played for the first time ever. They played a pretty good 60-minute game. You certainly had a pretty solid, I would say, half hour in Colorado. You had a pretty decent, maybe half an hour in St. Louis, and kind of across the board, that's what we had. You had a pretty good first half an hour in Arizona, and probably less in LA, but you still managed to eke out a point in that one. But this was a pretty good game played by the Wild, and the Ducks are reeling. They had scored 1 goal in 4 games previous to this, but they're still a really talented team, and for them to come out and play this well against the Ducks, I think, was encouraging. The loss is disappointing for sure, but I think the play was encouraging, and maybe even that makes the loss sting a little bit more, is because they finally played a good game. and they get nothing out of it, whereas they'd gotten points in the first 4 games and had yet to play a complete game. So it's kind of, not that I need any help losing hair, but that really kind of adds to the frustration.
I know that if you play a lot of games like that, you're going to win a majority of them.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
It stings when you lose.
Yeah.
I hate losing, especially the Ducks. I'll share Jared's disdain for losing to the Ducks, or Duckwads, as we've branded them at Wild Extra.
Yes.
But yeah, it just comes down to it again. 3 winnable games, and you only got 3 points out of it. Slam your head on the table.
So did you have anything, out of this West Coast road trip, because we waited so damn long for it to begin, do you have anything that, you noticed coming out of it? Anything that, any takeaways? What are your takeaways from this West Coast road trip?
Positive things. Let's see. I guess the Koivu line looked good tonight.
Yeah, fantastic tonight.
I don't know. I can't really remember how they looked on Friday, but then again, the whole team didn't look that good. And
true.
So I guess probably more takeaways will come out of tonight's game than anything, because
it's freshest in your mind.
But not really sure what else is positive. Negative. Let's get out the list. Let's start with the goaltender. He is drink.
Well, the positive is, Kemper did look good against LA. He basically stole us that point. I mean, what it boils down to. I think that anybody talking about any kind of goalie controversy is kind of needs to
hot take. Don't you hate pants?
Yes, don't you hate pants? That needs to settle down. I mean, you can start having those kind of conversations maybe in late November, December even. But until then, 1 start out of Kemper and 3 starts out of Dubnyk at the time. Let's pump the brakes. But I agree. Dubnyk's play is. I don't want to say that I'm worried yet, because it is only 4 games, and I think his save percentage is hovering somewhere below 900, but it's not Sergei Bobrovsky territory. I don't want to get chirped again by Jackets fans. I think it is concerning. I think and I'm going to do some more research on the topic, but it might just be that Dubnyk is off to a bit of a slow start, which isn't all that uncommon. I know back when I was a terrible goaltender in youth hockey that it took me a solid couple of weeks to kind of get my bearings as far as goaltending goes. I mean, my first couple of games of the season were always absolutely brutal. And, I'm not making excuses for Dubnyk. He had training camp to prepare and a handful of preseason games, but it could just be that. I mean, guys go through slumps, and hopefully, he's just kind of starting the season with a mini slump, and he can kind of work his way out of it, and hopefully he's, somewhere even remotely close to how good he was down the stretch last year for the rest of the season this year. So,
sidebar. When Ben and I are trying this new thing where we address hot takes with the line from The Simpsons where Homer just busts out, "Don't you hate pants?"
Yes.
So if you hear that or you see that on Twitter, that's what we're addressing, is a hot take.
I think inside jokes that you don't explain to other people are the best kind of inside jokes.
Yeah. So I'm looking it up here. This is also just to kill some time while I pull up Dubnyk's career splits in October.
That's a slick move.
And it does look like he's not overly great in October. He kind of gets better as the year goes along.
See, there you go.
.901 save percentage in October,
which isn't good.
So no, not at all. So yeah, hopefully he gets better as we go, because
well, and this is not something that you necessarily saw to him last year, because he was the backup in Arizona. So it's not like you had some kind of storyline where, Dubnyk was awful to start the season, and then Arizona dealt him to us, and he was great. You didn't really get that kind of sample size because he wasn't playing that often behind Mike Smith in Arizona. So he had a couple of good games, through November, December. We beat him in December, actually. And then, they traded for him, and obviously down the stretch, he was phenomenal. So, hopefully he warms up. He's that kind of player where he warms up into the season, and if he can be even any semblance of himself down the stretch last year, that's when it counts. Really, that's all that matters. And it's really easy to call out his contract right now. It's really easy to call out the goaltending situation as it is. Which how many other NHL teams are dealing with an unsure goaltending situation? A lot, but it's really easy to do that. But you got to give it some time. We can't stress that enough. All this, reactionary type stuff that's going on around the team. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. We all like hot takes and we all like having blasts with making absurd statements and being sarcastic, but you gotta pump the brakes and just give it some time.
I'll just remind everyone that Darcy Kemper began last year with 2 shutouts.
Exactly.
And then the wheels quickly came off.
They absolutely came off.
Let's not make too much out of one start, even though it was good. That's what you want from a backup goaltender.
Right.
But that was still just one start.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's the answer. Maybe Darcy just plays all of October next year and gets, all that good starts out of the way, and then bad Darcy shows up just in time for good Dubnyk to show up. Maybe that's the key.
You're onto something.
I think so.
Maybe the Wild will hire you as their next consultant.
They should. Me and Adam Oates.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll stick you in the jersey department. We could all use
there's going to be some changes.
Thank goodness.
It's going to be me and a flamethrower and that shoulder piping.
Yes. I guess I'm trying to think of other negative thoughts.
You can't think
most
of any?
Of this is just going to be in my post for tomorrow.
Sure.
But I think something else that I think Russo's hit on this, and just the fourth line is just not that noticeable.
No, I don't think that they're playing terrible. I've seen them have some decent offensive zone shifts, but they are a little few and far between. And it might just be the same thing as Dubnyk, where these guys need to find time to get some stride together. I don't think Carter and Hall have played together a lot last year. They kind of alternated really as that fourth line center, and obviously Porter's newer to the team. But there was absolutely, I distinctly remember the game in Carolina last year. This is weird to remember, but the fourth line won us that game. We won that game, I think it was 3-1 or 3-2 or something like that. The fourth line scored 2 out of the 3 goals, and they absolutely dominated the game. I don't think that this fourth line is quite there yet, obviously. But, to your point, you need a good fourth line. You need a line that can shut down other teams, and a line that can, maybe sometimes hold the opposing team's first line in their own zone and make them play defense a little bit. And we haven't seen that with a lot of consistency out of this fourth line. So I think that's a valid concern.
And I know Jordan Schrader is in Iowa, which is kind of a
buzzkill
topic for some, and it's a fair point to make, and he maybe should get a look, but I think as it's also been alluded to, that more of that has to do with the Wild cap situation.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, watching Iowa, the Wild need Jordan Schrader. Iowa needs Jordan Schrader. They're so...
Iowa could use a lot.
Yeah. They could use another 10 Schraders. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Schrader spark the fourth line, but I wouldn't bet on it because...
Yeah, and it comes back to, basically the reason why Schrader isn't on the team and alternating in, with Carter, Hall, Porter, is because of Niklas Backstrom. Really, that's kind of what it boils down to. That roster spot is an extra forward, and that's what it is. It was... there was some people that... I don't want to say there's people that were defending Backstrom, but there's people that were not upset with him at all for what happened, and it's like, this is the price that we pay. you don't have that kind of flexibility. You saw when Grayovac got hurt and Fontaine wasn't quite ready yet, they had to call up Schroeder on an emergency call-up, which is, a whole different kind of situation and kit and caboodle and whatnot, but you have to, use moves like that and make moves like that and have guys that are definitely on the ferry back and forth between here and Des Moines just because you have Niklas Backstrom sitting in the press box for 82 freaking games this year, unless Chuck Fletcher absolutely makes water out of wine and insert other miracles here.
The hot theory was this last week with Buffalo having goalie problems was get him on the phone and get rid of Backstrom.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more difficult.
You got to give Tim Murray more credit than that. I mean, the guy, for all that he did, and last year he had a purpose. You can't even. He didn't even disguise it.
His purpose was
tank. His purpose was get Connor McDavid at all costs, and he didn't. And he famously spoke out about it, which was probably not the most brilliant thing he's ever done, but. That's what he was doing. So you gotta. He knows what he's doing. He's swindled Chuck Fletcher out of too many second-round picks to not know what he's doing at this point. I don't think that he's taking any kind of bait on Niklas freaking Backstrom. As Chad Johnson is not by any stretch a great goaltender, but Niklas Backstrom. It's obviously not a cap hit concern for Buffalo because they're probably barely above the floor as it is, but they just don't need that kind of crap. Expiring contract or not. They're not going to bother with that, and even if they were, obviously they're not going to give us anything for him.
Even if you find someone to take Backstrom, you're probably going to have to eat.
Oh, you have to eat everything.
Lot,
you're going to eat the whole thing.
Yeah. And even then, you're still only going to get a.
No, you're going to get
round
nothing, and no team's going to do it because of the reason why the Wild want to get rid of him right now. He's going to take up a roster spot. So Lanner's hurt. That's fine. Yeah. You trade for Backstrom. He still has a no movement clause in his deal, even when he goes to Buffalo. So he's
say no.
Yeah. So he's in the press box in Buffalo, and he's costing, a potential player in Buffalo their roster spot. It's just no other GM is going to do that.
Just watch. Years from now, a Buffalo draft pick, which they acquired from the Wild, will turn into this superstar goalie, and we'll all just melt.
We'll cry into our grain belts.
Yeah, we'll just sit here at Grumpy's and play more achy breaky heart bingo.
Oh God. Yeah, we're here during rock and roll bingo, as it's called, and it's awful. Would not recommend. But, to their credit, they played the Wild game audio until about 5 or 6 minutes left in the third period. So, they had that going for them.
I think that was more. It was just time for bingo to start.
Yeah.
Even if the game was
it just so
tied,
happened the Ducks scored, and they switched to bingo.
Timing. But I think, I don't know. What, did you have any other takeaways from this road trip?
Zucker is super due. Along the lines of the Mikko line kind of dominating. I really like what I've seen out of that line. And, Zucker he's kind of personified the team tonight in that he was so snake-bitten it wasn't even funny. So I think that's a takeaway is that Zucker he's playing well, and that's a good thing, and don't let his point totals fool you. Because, he's got 1 point on the season, which was an amazing setup to Mikko. But he's still playing really well, and in that whole team, or that whole line, I would expect good things out of, because it just that line is playing way too well right now to not score more often than they are. Nino obviously got the goal tonight against the Ducks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that team or that line really tearing things up in the near future for them.
If they can play like that, yeah, the sky's the limit, and especially with the Columbus Blue Jackets on the horizon.
I was just gonna say.
Hopefully, we'll see a barrage of goals from that line.
Do you think Todd Richards is behind the bench for that game on Thursday?
Yeah, he'll be there.
Yeah.
Will he be there after? We don't know. Well, actually, as I noted tonight on Twitter, the Wild have played back-to-back games against winless teams, lost both, and have winless Blue Jackets on Thursday. So I hope. But
on the bright side, they did hand Arizona their first loss of the season.
That's true.
So
Arizona's kind of sneaky good.
Yeah.
They got some good. They got some good young players, and they'll kind of be a surprise this year. Maybe they'll be that one team that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, if Mike Smith is playing well, they're not a terrible team.
Not. And that's what Dave Tippett's system is designed for.
Right.
Defense and goaltending.
Yep.
Yeah. Except they got to lose the armbands.
They're for morning. But yeah, so anyway, they to your point, they play the Blue Jackets on Thursday after a wonderful 4-day layoff after the West Coast road trip, which we love because that 4-day layoff before the road trip was a lot of fun too, or 5-day. And then they play the Duckwads again on Saturday afternoon. So they kind of are getting the round pound of struggling teams, but so far they've got 1 point in 2 games against said struggling teams, and hopefully they don't hand Columbus their first win of the season on Thursday. But I don't know. Anything's possible with this team. Sergei Bobrovsky is playing terribly right now, but the Wild just seem to be absolutely PDOing themselves to death.
Yeah, we just handed Anton Khudobin a great start. And he did not have great starts. Any point so far.
Anton Khudobin, he of the 13.5 goals allowed average before this game.
Khudobin, sorry, not Khudobin.
Well, whatever.
Yeah. Got Khudobin on my mind, apparently.
Understandable.
Yeah, big. Actually, I think we've got Columbus Thursday, then the Ducks Saturday afternoon, and then we go up to Winnipeg Sunday afternoon.
Oh, really?
So,
Jesus. Yeah, that's a lot of beef right there. Doing it back to back with the Ducks and Jets.
That's a lot of physical teams right there. Although, actually, the Wild were probably a more physical team tonight against Anaheim, as we've seen noted physical center Mikhail Granlund just take out Ryan Kessler.
That was awesome.
So if I ever see Granlund in a bar, he gets a beer for that. Whoops.
Yeah, Mikko is kind of famous for his occasional exploding shoulder, but you really wouldn't expect that out of the short and svelte Granlund.
No.
But he really pulled it off. I mean, I think he more or less obviously caught Kessler by surprise, but absolutely decleated him with that hit, which was just fantastic.
Must be some in the water on Anaheim. Everybody just feels like they're the Hulk.
Yeah, well, jeez.
I don't know.
It's not even counting Chris Stewart.
I'm still trying to think of any point in that game tonight where I noticed Chris Stewart.
Not either.
Did
he even suit up? That's an honest question.
I can.
Supposedly he was on the fourth line, according to Daily Faceoff, but
yeah.
I don't. I mean, we were watching big TVs that were kind of far away, but still.
I mean, because I kind of was paying attention for him, just so I could say, "Hey, there's Chris Stewart." But no.
Did you see him sprint down the hallway? I don't even know. I don't know if we got that out of him.
Wild, we're always tweeting that, so we don't get to see that anymore. That's a good indication if Stewart plays, but I don't know. Let's see here. Rosters. No, he didn't play. No, he didn't. I'm sorry. I missed him. I was looking for 44, not 29, which is his number now.
Yeah.
He played 12 minutes and 12 seconds.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of a hot topic on the Twitter tonight. Was
a little bit, yeah. Wild Extra account got chirped by the one and only Pat McLetty on wanting Stewart around.
And then we discussed it here at the table. I'm not disappointed he didn't come back.
Right.
It was just kind of one of those things because of the Backstrom deal that if he came back, good, he probably would have been, useful for the most part.
Sure.
But I'm not disappointed because of his disappearing act in the postseason.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I mean, he had 11 points in 20 games for us down the stretch. Obviously, the chemistry that he developed in that with the Mikko and Nino line was good. I mean, down the stretch, they had a couple of big goals out of that line. I think that line was a good fit. You had the grinder to dig pucks out with Stewart, the playmaking center obviously in Koivu, and the shooter in Nino. But yeah, his disappearance in the playoffs really kind of made me totally okay with him not re-signing. I mean, it was something that was kind of foreshadowed by his, fancy stats, is that he wasn't as good as he was playing while he was here. But all that said, I would still rather have him on the roster than Niklas Backstrom in the press box. I mean, that's just the bottom line of it. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Stewart. If you don't like Stewart, that's totally fine. I totally understand that. But it really boils down to him or, Niklas Backstrom hanging out, eating popcorn with Michael Russo and Chad Graff. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to take Stewart 10 times out of 10 in that situation.
If you guys can hear that, Danger Zone just came on the bingo as Ben was talking about Chris Stewart. So I think that's just the universe telling us this is a good thing.
Anytime you can throw Kenny Loggins into a podcast, I think it's a positive.
But yeah, no, I agree. I would take Stewart 10 out of 10 times over Backstrom, and you probably would have gotten him for a much, much less cap hit than what Backstrom.
Well, right, he signed for what, like 1.5 for the Ducks. I mean, a 1-year deal, 1.5. That's not a bad deal, no matter who you're signing.
No,
I'm sorry.
He would have been productive for what you're paying him right now.
I mean, I understand they gave Carter like $600,000 or whatever it was for 1 year. That's obviously that's a deal that nobody can be mad at all. But and same with Prosser's awkward 2-year deal. But a 1-year deal for $1.5 million, I mean, that's such chump change for an NHL team, and really, that probably would have prevented them from claiming Chris Porter. You would think, not necessarily, but possibly. So really, it boils down to Stewart versus Porter, and it's like, I think Stewart is maybe a little bit more of a third line type. Like we said, he had a pretty decent rapport last year on that third line with Koivu and Nino, or second line, whatever you want to call it. I would take that. I would take that over Porter. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably not a popular opinion amongst bloggers, especially in the stats realm, but I would rather have that than Backstrom in street clothes.
I have not been impressed with Chris Porter.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of there,
Exactly, I mean, and he's only being there for 7 minutes and 40 seconds tonight.
And it's not like, Nate Prosser being there and you notice him because he's getting splattered like a bug on a windshield. He's just kind of there. He's just kind of a warm body on the ice, and he's playing decent, and he's a hockey player, but he's just, that's it. Like, that's end of story. Like, Chris Porter, a hockey player. Finn, nothing more.
I guess I was questioned the claim for Porter. I mean, he's another body, I guess, but
You say another body or another buddy?
Whoops.
No, you said another body, but it was another buddy.
That too. I mean, I guess I didn't know Zach Parise was moonlighting as assistant to the general manager.
That's kind of like the LeBron thing, where it's like, we don't want Kevin Love. And all of a sudden LeBron goes, yeah, we want Kevin Love. Yeah, we want Kevin Love. That's basically how that happened.
I mean, I guess if I was being honest, I'd probably rather have Jordan Schrader in that spot just for his speed.
I don't disagree.
But like we said, the Porter pickup kind of bumped him to Iowa.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it also raises question marks for Grabeck coming back. I mean, because, Coyle, you think of the lines when they started the season, Fontaine on the IR, someone's got to go to the fourth line. It, unfortunately for Fontaine, would probably been him. But now with Porter there, that's probably going to cost Grabeck, a lot of time in the NHL this year.
And then we say Fontaine probably gets bumped to the fourth line. Well, then fourth line productivity probably shoots up 100%.
Right. Yep. Because Fontaine's a good fourth liner. Yep. Especially as a fourth liner. I mean, you really kind of, playing with house money if you can get production out of a fourth liner, which is why we liked Fontaine and Schrader so much on the fourth line last year, because you were actually getting a little bit of offensive kick out of those guys. But, with Porter there just kind of being, the most beige and mayonnaise hockey player of all time on the fourth line, you're not getting anything, really. You're just kind of getting, you're getting Just a little bit of good defense, a little bit of a shot here and there in a low leverage situation. That's about it.
And for those out there who kind of are like, why do you care so much about a fourth line? Well, if you've seen the Blackhawks and the Kings who've won Stanley Cups in the last decade consistently, they win because they have four lines who get tossed out on the ice and can score.
Yeah.
Like if you're putting up any line that can go out on the ice and score, you're going to do well in the postseason. That's kind of the blueprint for success in the NHL now. The fourth line grinders and fighters are really almost non-existent, as I saw on a graph today.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, with the current NHL and the fourth liners being what they are now, they're a lot more speed and defensive based guys. If you don't have a fourth line that can hold up, you're at such a disadvantage because on the other side, like the Blackhawks and Kings, if you can shorten up somebody else's bench, that's a strong way to win the game right there. I mean, if you can basically force another team to not play an entire line of their team, you're going a long ways towards winning that hockey game. It's kind of like forcing a team to pass in football, not the NFL because that's a different story, but it's just if you can force them to shorten up their bench to that point, which the Blackhawks and the Kings kind of do because they have such good fourth lines. If you can go four lines strong, really a huge and underrated thing, I think.
Yeah. I just totally lost my train. I guess I don't know. Should we discuss all the Russo parody accounts?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Since we're just kind of spitballing this podcast, since we did no prep work for it because we're going right after a game.
Yeah, we were watching a game. We were having some beers. You really can't expect us to do a whole lot of preparation.
No, I guess we kind of joked about it at the table here. Yeah. Can somebody make a Chad Graff parody account? I mean, I feel bad for him.
I do too.
There's like 15 Russo parody accounts and no Chad Graff parody accounts. Like you've got the tagline Chad Graff's pants.
Yes.
On your Twitter.
That's I am the one and only Chad Graff parody account right now.
I'm watching a commercial with Jared Spurgeon. What is going on?
Yeah, no, they've been rolling that on FSM.
I have not. Is this new?
Yeah, no, it's been this season.
Yet. I guess I haven't been paying attention, but I'm sorry. I just totally got mesmerized that Jared Spurgeon was in a commercial. I guess
it's hard to recognize.
Would not have been high on the list of Wild players I was expecting to see in a commercial this year.
No, I understand. As far as the Russo thing, like we know the filter, and the filter is he's good stuff as far as we're concerned. I don't hate parody accounts. There's people out there that hate parody accounts, and that's fine.
I love a good parody account.
Yeah, exactly. If you want, I'm sorry. I like Danny Allstar.
Yep,
it's hilarious. I find humor in that. Maybe I'm a simpleton, but I enjoy a good parody account. The filter is a good parody account. Every parody account based on Russo after that is just desperately trying to ride the coattails of the filter, and it's just like, you're not. Basically is what it boils down to. You're not the filter. The popularity that the filter has gotten is for a reason, because the filter does good stuff. He's got funny tweets. Right. He gets involved with the fans. He gets involved with Russo. He's got a good rapport with Wild fans. All of these other pop-up Russo accounts, it's just like, just give it a rest. Like, a good parody account is one thing, but to have parody accounts basically of parody accounts, come on, just enough. Enough is enough. And I think that's, pretty soon it's going to be like, Russo's cufflinks and I jokingly called myself Russo's Mousepad for the weekend, and it's like, you can only do so much for that. And to your point, Chad Graff, I think does a fantastic job. If not for Russo being the, basically God amongst writers that he is, Chad Graff would be right up there. He would be. People would absolutely love him, if it weren't for Russo, being one of the best sports writers, that you could basically find across the board right now, really.
Kind of side note, Russo was just
Oh, he was
point with his Twitter
He was
account.
savage tonight. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. He was retweeting people and just absolutely savaging them. I want to know where this Russo has been the whole time because it was tremendous.
Maybe it's something in the water out there that just puts everyone on edge.
And I know Russo has been, seeing a little bit of our Twitter action, obviously lately, as he mentioned the great Jared Mason in his last article for Sunday. Maybe he picked up on a little bit of our edginess. Maybe we can take credit for this. I don't know. Sees what we're doing, and he's like, you know what? That looks like fun. These Wild Extra guys, they're snarky and kind of mean. Maybe I can do a little bit of that. I doubt it. I doubt it.
I'm also having problems calling Jared great anymore after he savaged the Mighty Ducks trilogy in his gamer today.
Yeah, I can understand your problems with that.
Although I tried to make a peace offering when I sent him a pic of the standings before the day where the Ducks were 29th in the league.
That of the lowly Blue Jackets, of course.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck in a weird in-between place because, full disclosure, the Mighty Ducks movies were basically the reason why I started playing actual ice hockey. I'm not going to lie. I spent some time in my childhood living in the Florida Keys and San Antonio, Texas. And the only link that I had back to my native Minnesota was the Mighty Ducks movies. And I watched D1 a fair amount. And D2, I absolutely probably wore that tape out. And then I came back to Minnesota when I was about 10 and started playing hockey. And after a couple years of playing hockey, I think I watched D2 again. And not to side with Mason, but man, after playing the actual game of hockey and seeing that movie, it really kind of ruined it for me. And then there was D3, and that was just kind of like a weird, sad attempt at capping off the franchise. Like, Emilio Estevez didn't even want to be involved because he was in the movie for like 7 minutes, and so I'm kind of straddling the line here, I realize, because I'm with you in that I love the Mighty Ducks movies. They're ultimately the reason why I started playing hockey. But at the same time, I kind of see some of Jared's points where it's like, yeah, they were kind of corny and kind of a poor representation of hockey, but I guess I'm always still going to have a soft spot in my heart for him, as you do.
And then, as I learned, I think it was this morning, we were discussing the third Mighty Ducks with my friend Dan.
Yes.
And you reveal you or him have not seen any of the Godfathers. You guys were really trying to get me going this morning, let me tell you.
I that shouldn't be that surprising because anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely can't stand sitting through a movie. And it takes a Herculean effort for me to sit through a movie. And so it really shouldn't be that surprising that I haven't been able to sit down and partake in The Godfather.
Oof. Telling this to the guy who used to work in the movie theater down the road.
I'm sorry.
All right, well, we've massively gone off. Not only gone off topic of anything wild related, we're not even on hockey anymore, which is I think why most people listen. So
we went from Russo's cufflinks to really talking about The Godfather.
But, all right, let's. I did one of the Twitter Q&A things.
Super!
I put out some. Anybody had a question?
And you actually got responses?
Yeah, people.
That's amazing.
It took a few before I actually got some.
Is it Josh in Iowa?
No, it's actually the first one. We will have no idea, so we'll just guess.
Okay.
From Bob Boland, Drop Shot Bob.
Sure.
When do you think the whitetail deer rut will peak in northern Minnesota? I did say the Twitter question had to be wild related, so Bob technically did fall into that category. Yep. Next time I will probably re-clarify.
This kind of falls into that bit that we were doing, I think, on a Lost podcast where we talked about wild rice for about 20 minutes.
Yes, that was one of my favorite bits.
That was a terrific Lost podcast. I think it's sometime in November, but I'm not positive on that. I'd have to ask my dad.
I Googled it while we were
Oh, okay.
We kind of went way off topic here.
Great.
Apparently, it just early November.
Yep. Okay.
So we'll
All
roll
so
with
yeah,
that.
Hunt deer
that's our
sometime in
guess.
November. That's a good rule of thumb because I believe that's the legal season for it
We
too.
tried, Bob. At Daniel Mick, the infamous
Weird.
at Daniel Mick. Is Zucker the new Pominville?
I don't think we can call him that quite yet because he hasn't missed that many nets yet.
Yeah,
Zucker's
he hasn't, whiffed on-
snake-bitten ness, if that's a word, is more along the lines of him not quite getting the opportunity, even though he hustles for it, kind of thing. It's more like he crashes the net hard, and like this the puck hops over his stick or something along those lines, or the defender lifts his stick, something like that. It's not like I have 85% of the net to shoot at that's wide open and empty, and I'm going to drill it into the backboards as hard as I can, a la Jason Pominville last year.
That's also called the Mietnin.
Yeah. If he starts hitting the post, then it's the Brodziak.
Yeah. I actually thought he was going to have one tonight. He tried one of those.
God, he was close.
I don't know if he tried to. I can't remember if he tried to shoot, but he basically got the goalie to go down, and then it looked like he was just going to fly around the net and do a wraparound into the empty net, kind of like what he did in the playoffs last year.
Right.
But I think the defenseman broke it up from happening. So I don't know. I think, like you said, he'll be all right, but I hope not.
Yeah, he's getting so many opportunities. I'd be really hard pressed to see him not scoring sometime soon because the opportunities that he's getting, and then that line too. That line is just playing lights out right now, so it's really a matter of time.
And just kind of from the more basic of the fancy stats, the points per 60 at 5-on-5 last year. Don't forget, Jason Zucker was number 2 in the league behind Rick Nash.
In the league.
So yeah, let's see, Josh Minders, at JMind.
Sure.
Sorry if I butcher your name. Tell me how to say it. Kind of like what you hear on the Russo podcast.
Right.
Kind of the same. Can you discuss research? Who the hell put a hex on Zucker? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, maybe it was somebody involved with the Las Vegas hockey team trying to get him cheap. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past anybody in Las Vegas for having some kind of voodoo priest working on the situation, like Papa Shango from the early 1990s WWE. He probably has a Zucker doll.
Yeah.
And they're probably trying to get him cheap for their hockey team when it finally happens. That's my bet. Blame Vegas.
They probably just sit there tweeting hashtag one of us.
Yes. Hashtag the only one of us.
Let's see, I only have one left here. From Brent Walby.
Brent.
Where is Walbo? How is it that the Wild go from being a fundamentally sound D unit to giving up countless point-blank chances each game?
That's a good question. Actually, no, Brent.
He's making us think here.
Yeah, Brent's a good guy. I think it's just kind of been a product of how they played this year, and not playing that full 60-minute game like we were talking about. I think that in the Colorado's game, they just came out a bit rusty, and that I think they just early on fell into Colorado's fire wagon game. And the shot attempts in that game really kind of bear it out, because, they ended up with 63 shot attempts at the end of the game to 44. That's a lot. That's a lot of shot attempts for two teams. And then in the two games following that, their third periods looked atrocious, but they were sitting on 2 or 3 goal leads. So, I think that they just kind of fell into that prevent defense. And, not the best thing in the world, obviously, but you didn't see a great third period effort. But they were also up by multiple goals in the third period for both of those games. The Los Angeles game, I think that was just bad legs. I think that was just they had no legs left after that holding off Arizona, and tonight you saw a 60-minute effort out of them, and I think they played pretty good defense. The goals that were against them were, I don't want to say they were fluky, they were earned goals, but I think that overall tonight you finally saw them play kind of a wild defensive hockey game.
And I think we're also just kind of seeing maybe a little bit of growing pains as we go with these new pairings.
Yeah, that too.
And
Absolutely.
it's not the same Suter, Brody, and Scandella
Right.
Spurgeon we've gotten accustomed to.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Mike Yeo looks like he's committed on not having those pairs this year, which I kind of like. But, I mean, if that defense continues to struggle, then he may have to go back to that.
Yeah,
But,
and
that's still kind of down the road. But
right. And he's leaning pretty heavily on Dumba. And not that's a bad thing. I mean, we all love Matt Dumba, don't get me wrong. But, the wart with Dumba's game is that, he's a bit of a risk taker. He's a bit of more of an offensive defenseman, definitely. And he's gonna make some dumb plays on occasion. He's gonna make some bad turnovers. He's gonna miss assignments on occasion. He's 21.
yeah,
And the fact that he's being leaned on at 21 isn't a bad thing, because that's just kind of a testament to how good of a player he is.
Correct.
But he's also going to make those mistakes. And the fact that he's basically on your second pairing and getting those kind of minutes, at the same time they're reducing the first pairing minutes from last year. So he's actually getting legit second pairing minutes.
yeah.
He's those mistakes are going to cost you. And if you're getting those mistakes at 20-some minutes a game, you're going to end up with a fair amount of defensive mistakes.
Yep.
That's just kind of you get when you've got a 21-year-old stud prospect that's learning how to play defense.
Actually, I did have one more question I missed.
Sure.
From Matt at MNMatt3. How good is my pick of Dubnyk for turd looking? Referencing my appearance on the Sportive podcast. Well, as we kind of hit on earlier, it looks good. I mean, it is just 5 games, but that's looking like a good. Definitely not like my turd pick.
I plan on taking a look at Dubnyk from like a fundamental standpoint. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him right now. To even say there's anything wrong with him might be a bit of a stretch, because there's been a handful of semi-soft goals, I would say.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been a game out of him like we saw out of Kemper or Backstrom last year around December, where it's like he has no shot at stopping the puck.
It doesn't look like the goalie is a weird glitch
Right.
in NHL 2004. Puck just goes right through the
Right.
crest
I mean,
of the jersey.
if he starts to look like a shooter tutor at some point, then by all means we can start to get a little bit concerned. But I think for the most part right now, the goals being scored on him are legitimate NHL goals. Is there a couple of them that he'd like to have back? Absolutely. But I'm not ready to hit the panic button on him yet. I'm not ready to call him a turd just yet. But, we'll see how it bears out. Like you pointed out earlier, he gets off to a slow start usually. Hopefully he's the type of guy that warms up, approaching mid-season and can be strong all the way through the end of the season, just like last year, because that's what this team needs. I mean, this team needs a good stretch run, because they're not the type of team to coast their way to the President's Cup by any stretch, so they're going to need a good stretch run. That's just kind of the long and the short of it.
Yeah. I would agree. I think I don't know. I don't have anything left. A lot of questions. They're putting the chairs up.
Yeah, I think they're trying to tell us to get out of here.
Good indicator to leave.
Gotta finish my goblet of beer here.
You've been working on it. I would say if you're still listening,
yes,
thanks.
Wow, indeed.
Check in on Wild Extra all week. Minor league update tomorrow. You can read about. It's going to be really fun putting into a lot of words what I'll just say all year is Wild played good defensively and in goal, but they don't have any type of scoring up front. So
The Iowa Wild, you're saying?
Yeah.
Iowa.
I
mean, it's easy to.
You could probably apply that to the other team too.
You can really kind of make a blanket statement there, but you're talking about the Iowa Wild specifically.
Yeah, they're what they are.
It is what it is.
So yeah.
Yeah, also look forward to my 3 stars of the week tomorrow. If I somehow miraculously get around to writing that tonight as well. And also, if you're listening to this before, Tuesday is our birthday. Tuesday is the happy 1-year anniversary to Wild Extra, who made its fateful maiden voyage on October 20th, 2014. So look forward to some cake and ice cream, and maybe we'll get some kind of internet piñata.
Actually, I think it's more fitting for us to just have lemon bars.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, I don't think cake's quite our thing.
It's been a whole year. We're still here.
For now.
Despite some's best efforts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, on that note, happy birthday to us. Thank you for listening. Thank you, all 4 of you that have come forward and had actually admitted that you listen to this podcast. For Giles Farrell, at Giles Farrell, and for Ben Remington, at Ben Remington, thank you again for the download, and we will talk to you next week.
Was, without a doubt, the worst episode ever.